We don't have the opportunity to operate in airspace that potentially would in a conflict. In the course of a conflict, we expect that there probably wouldn't be a lot of airline traffic, or it could be in an area that's very wide open, that's not heavily populated like the lower 48 is. And so Northern Edge, with its expansive airspace here in Alaska, gives us kind of a peek into that opportunity and allows us to bring all these assets in, both other Air Force units and Navy units, Marine units, and integrate them all together in one place and time in the exercise.
About marine mammal migration.
Right. Now, I understand. I was reading up on that a little bit. That's certainly an area that's kind of outside of my expertise. But it appears that, as General Wilsbach alluded to, that the science indicates that we're not having that much of an impact. I will tell you that we're very sensitive to that. So, for example, in our air traffic patterns getting in and out of Elmendorf, you'll notice that most of our routes come from the north and depart immediately to the north because there's less population there in part, and so we have less environmental impact. And so, as was mentioned by Colonel Mino before, you might see a lot of aircraft taking off or arriving here at J-Bear or up there at Eielson Air Force Base, but you're not going to really hear much or see much after that. We're operating in areas either over land or over water where there aren't a lot of people, and so we look very closely at that. Not just the people, but also the marine mammals and the other people in that environment. And we're pretty confident that we're not really having a significant adverse impact, but we're very sensitive to that. So I don't know the exact numbers. I think it's a little bit more than that that are here. We try and split them between the two bases for a number of reasons. One is the capacity. So at each of the bases right now, we have one runway. So there's a limit in terms of the number of aircraft we can actually launch out or recover at any one time. But the other thing is that's a very positive aspect of the training. So we would expect if we were to operate in a large-scale conflict that we would have to operate from a number of different air bases. And you can kind of imagine how they would sit there and depart, and we have to synchronize that in terms of time, and then they have to arrive at the same place and then orchestrate the exercise. And so that's another advantage for us of using both Eielson and J-Bear as the primary bases. It's a big deal. So what's interesting is when you acquire a new weapon system like the F-35, it's not like going and buying a car where there's not really a lot of surprises. We have a very rigorous test program and development program, but the reality is when you're dealing with something completely new and as complex as the F-35, despite our best efforts, there's going to be some surprises and we're going to learn some things. So I was fortunate enough to be involved in the early F-22 test program, and some of the ideas that we had about how we were going to employ the airplane turned out to be exactly spot on. But to be absolutely frank with you, some of the ideas were way off the mark, and we didn't know that until we had the opportunity to go integrate. And there were some strengths that we discovered that we didn't anticipate, and there were also some limitations that we became aware of that we had to mitigate. And so by working with the F-35, we were able to sit there and realize those so that we can be better equipped to operate in an operational environment in the future. So we have a lot of techniques and procedures to mitigate those risks. For example, we assign blocks to the aircraft, and so we assign them different sanctuary altitudes that are stacked up vertically. And so we use those and other procedures like that in order to mitigate that risk, but there's always risk when we do this. So what our responsibility is to figure out what's the appropriate risk to accept now so we can sit there and achieve the objectives that we have to. Our goal over the long term is to mitigate all the risks. So I'm willing to accept a little bit more risk, slightly, smartly, in an exercise like Northern Edge, so I can mitigate that long-term risk so that when, especially that younger pilot or that younger operator gets into a combat environment for the first time, they have that same feeling like I did in 1999 where it's comfortable to them because they've seen it before, they know what to expect, and they know how to deal with it. So this isn't the first time. We were fortunate because down at Eglin Air Force Base, we had both Marine F-35s and Air Force and Navy F-35s as well. And so they had an opportunity to do some operations with F-22s out of Tyndall Air Force Base over the last couple of years. Now that we've reached our initial operating capability with the F-35 at Hill Air Force Base on the Air Force side, we're starting to see that aircraft participate in some of our other exercises. So this Northern Edge continues to build on that experience that we have, but it's not the first time that F-35s have worked with either F-22s or other 4th-gen assets. We've been doing that for several years now, actually. We watch what's happening in the national security scene as eagerly as anyone else. We're very cognizant of that. I believe that's our responsibility. So as we look forward, we try and anticipate what future national security challenges are. We plan for those, we resource for those. But day to day, it doesn't really change much what we're doing at Northern Edge. It's more that we're watching it as kind of an interested observer so that we can anticipate what and when those future potential national security challenges may manifest themselves. So I was fortunate enough to be here in 07 to 11, and during that time frame we had 3 Northern Edge exercises. I flew in 2 of those. And each year we've continued to build on that and make it better and generally bigger. So the first time that I flew in Northern Edge, what my comment or my takeaway was is this is the closest exercise that we have to combat operations, even surpassing Red Flag for a number of reasons. Red Flag's a very good exercise, but Northern Edge builds on that and kind of takes it to the next level. And so as we've had the Northern Edges over the years, we've been able to continue to build on that and improve it each year, and that's what we're doing again this year. They have done that recently. We watch that very closely. You know, one of our responsibilities is to ensure the sovereignty of U.S. national airspace. So that's a real-world operational mission that the 3rd Wing regularly supports, and if necessary, we'll be ready to respond for that. No, I think that now that we started the exercise, we're in the second full day of the exercise. I think this is about what it's going to be. You know, the exercise changes and we have some different events. Because of the weather down in the Gulf of Alaska, we haven't been able to do everything that we want to do, and so we'll expand that a little bit. But as far as the overland flying, it'll essentially look much like it did yesterday and today from the perspective of someone being here in Anchorage.